Hey, folks, welcome to JamesPod. I'm James Abrenio, the host. Before we begin an interesting interview with Salaam Bhatti, and I'm going to let you pronounce, just for the record, can you tell us how to pronounce your last name?
Bhatti.
Bhatti. Okay. I'm going to get it close. People call me Abrenio. I deal with the same thing. So
we can Beyonce me. Salaam.
Okay.
I'm probably the only Salaam you know, and that's okay.
Okay. All right. I like it. Well, I know a few Salams, but
Oh, word? Okay, great.
Why are you hating? It's all good, man. Before we get into your interview, though, I live up here in Northern Virginia, Fairfax, Braddock district, James Walkinshaw's current district. As folks probably know, if they're watching this, tragically we lost Jerry Connolly, great representative, but now his seat is open, and I'm seeing a bit more signs for the opponent, Stuart Whitson, than I would prefer. I'm so focused myself on our Virginia state elections and then obviously the midterms coming up that I want to make sure people don't forget to make sure to show up for this special election. You can do early voting up to September 6th, and then the actual election day, the special election day is September 9th. Obviously, you're going to want to choose James Walkinshaw. Whitson, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. It is what it is. He was quoted as saying, quote, "I agree with Trump on everything." Okay. That's the kind of candidates that we're dealing with. And we're going to talk about, Salaam, your opponent in a moment, because I think that's kind of where we're at in this country. And so I'm glad folks like you are stepping up, but do your duty, make sure to get that special election. We can't just assume that we're going to win these elections, even in a place like Northern Virginia. So Salaam, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
No, well, I'm concerned, you're a litigator. So I hope I don't get in trouble.
I don't know. What's your concern? Why would being a litigator?
Are there going to be direct questions or cross-examination?
No, I mean, look, I tell anybody that's coming on this podcast, I am a Democrat. This is not a gotcha thing. I really just want for my 10 viewers, for people to get to know a little bit more about our election system, our candidates, our public servants. Last interview I did, I had Chris Falcon talking about expungement clinics. So this is an educational podcast more than anything. And I just like talking about politics. So if you feel that I'm pushing too hard, then get a tougher skin, because this is level 3 versus level 10. All right.
Yeah. And the best 10 viewers.
Yeah. Yes. Best looking.
Yeah.
All right. So, Salaam, I had a chance to look about your background, but I want you to tell us your stories. Tell us, why are you running for Congress? What about your background thinks that makes you ideal to represent Virginians?
Yeah, like you, I'm a lawyer. I'm a public interest lawyer. And my old username was Poverty Lawyer. I used to work at the Virginia Poverty Law Center.
And what is the Virginia Poverty Law Center, for those that don't know?
It's a nonprofit. It's a statewide nonprofit that's headquartered in Richmond, Virginia. And what we're essentially lobbyists for poor people. And what we do is we help draft bills with champions in the General Assembly and work them through the committees, get them before the Assembly, and get it to the governor. So my claim to fame is that I'm the only advocate in the country that was able to convince Republicans to vote unanimously to expand a welfare program.
Wow.
So in 2020, we expanded SNAP for over 25,000 working families. And SNAP is the nation's #1 line of defense against hunger.
Yeah.
So we got
and that. By the way, can you help us understand what is SNAP? Because a lot of people talk about Medicaid. What is SNAP and compare it to Medicaid? How does it work in conjunction?
SNAP is a separate program, stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I call it the prince of the welfare world because every time you hear SNAP, it's always formerly known as food stamps.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. That makes it. Do you know why they changed the name? Go ahead.
Yeah. So they changed the name because there was some polling that was done and they saw that food stamps had like a negative connotation with it. So they made it an acronym, as the Washington, D.C. loves doing, making acronyms out of everything. So Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It originally was going to become Nutrition Assistance Program, but somebody was like, let's add S, for supplemental.
Okay. Has it from a ground game mattered at all, or do you think it's changed anything?
No, because even though it's been over a decade of the name change, the media still says SNAP or food stamps, or just says food stamps outright. Yeah. Congress members even still say food stamps. Yeah. So it'll probably take a generation for it to change.
Yeah, and I will say we kind of jumped over the intro as far as what you're running for. You're running for District 1 against Rob Whitman. That's right. And I'm gonna let you again tell us why you're the guy to beat Whitman, but tell us about him. Why does this race matter, and what kind of person are we dealing with on the other side?
Yeah, so Rob Whitman comes across as a mild-mannered Clark Kent, but he's more of a Lex Luthor. Okay. He's made millions while he's been in Congress, and when you're a public servant, public servants shouldn't be getting rich while doing public service, unless you write a best-selling novel. And I don't think Rob Whitman has written a best-selling novel. So that's one of the things that we're up against, and that's one of the priorities that I have in my campaign of saving America, which is to make sure Congress members cannot trade stocks. We shouldn't have that self-interest of how we're dealing, and especially that so many of these stock purchases happen on bad things that are happening to Americans, or missiles or that are being made to kill others. So that type of insider knowledge, it doesn't work in the private sector. It shouldn't be allowed in the public sector. But yeah, that's one of the people that we're dealing with. He's voted for the big, beautiful bill. And I only call it that because that's the government name. It's anything but. Yeah. And he voted for it. And he voted for something that's going to put one of the hospitals in our district at risk of closing.
Which hospital?
It's Rappahannock Hospital in Lancaster County. Okay. And it's a rural area. And one of the things that people may not realize is that hospitals get a lot of funding from Medicaid. And what the big, beautiful bill did is cut $1 trillion from Medicaid. That's the biggest cut Medicaid has ever faced. So when you have hospitals in populated areas, they got funding from different areas. So they'll be a little okay. But rural parts of the country, they only get their primary source of funding is Medicaid. So here's the triple whammy. There are hospitals already in rural parts of the country that have had to close down divisions, typically labor and delivery, because their funding is drying up. So this is already a problem. And now with funding even getting cut more so, they may have to close more departments or just shut down entirely. So then with hospitals often being the largest employer in a rural area, all of a sudden you got hundreds of people who are out of jobs. And then you've got a whole rural area that has no hospital. So what business is going to invest in an area that has no healthcare? So it's killing us in so many ways, physically, literally, economically.
Well, it's interesting. And I saw on your resume that you also completed the Sorensen program, which anybody watching this interested in politics, especially if you're a young leader, Sorensen is a non-political education program out of UVA where you travel across all regions of Virginia. We went back to, so I grew up in Grundy, Virginia, in Buchanan County. So did you have a chance to do the coal mines?
We didn't. So I was there. I was in
COVID.
I was during COVID.
Okay.
So we were looking forward to that, but we didn't get it.
Yeah. So I had lived in Buchanan County until I was like 13, but I had an opportunity to actually go down to coal mines. But it was fascinating. The program's amazing. I'm a huge fan. But one of the things that I recall when we're going to the southern parts of Virginia, not even all the way down to Southwest Virginia, but get down to Roanoke and a little bit further there, you have these small towns talking about the difficulty of bringing in young people, because if you want to have a kid, but you can't get to the hospital for 3 hours, why are you going to go there? And so you can see that trickling effect. I pay attention more to state politics, and recently there was a couple comments. The candidate for lieutenant governor on the Republican side, I think it's John Reed. I think it's John Reed. He said something to the effect of he just doesn't believe these Medicaid cuts are happening. He just doesn't believe it. And I hear that a lot, especially when I'm talking to friends across the aisle that just say, look, that's just bullshit. That's a Democratic talking point. What's your response to that?
You just show them a screenshot of the bill. And the thing is that these cuts are delayed cuts. They are purposely, deliberately happening after the midterm election.
Mm.
So that way the brunt isn't felt until afterwards. But when you have, for example, Virginia operates on a biennium, a 2-year budget. Virginia already has to start planning for these cuts because those cuts are going to happen during the biennium. Hospitals also have to plan in advance for these cuts to happen. In fact, there was already a medical center, I think, in somewhere in the Midwest that just shut down. They're like, we're not going to be able to handle it, so we just have to close operations now. So we don't even know what the pre-shockwave effect is as corporations start to plan for these cuts. One of the things I learned while in Lancaster County just yesterday was that the Rappahannock Hospital had to shut down their L&D, their labor and delivery unit. So people who are, building their families have to travel an hour and a half to Richmond to deliver their children. And that is wild to consider.
That is super wild. How do you get across to voters that just say, we don't believe you? What is your approach? Do you just not even address it and move on? Or do you take steps to try to educate when you're out on the ground and you get that random voter in your area?
Yeah, it's definitely taking steps, like showing them where they're already seeing it in their life. Their grocery prices are increasing. Their purchases are increasing. Like if they go to Walmart just increased their prices because of the tariffs. So once they're like, in theory, they thought that tariffs were something that the supplier paid or that the other country would be impacted by. But no, your prices are increasing because of the tariffs are being pushed onto you. That's the way they work. And I was talking with a restaurant owner in Lancaster County just yesterday, and he sells hamburgers. We were talking about the price of beef increasing. And he said he's tried to absorb as much of that cost as possible, but it's rising so often that he cannot increase the menu prices as often as those are increasing. So he's seeing that he's having to increase the prices, and he's seeing people not coming as often. So that is happening now. We're seeing increase in the grocery prices, which is impacting restaurant owners as well. We're seeing the increase in tariffs, which is impacting everybody. We're also seeing increase in healthcare costs, which are projected for next year, where over 300,000 Virginians are going to see upwards of 1,000% increase in their health insurance premiums. So this is all happening right now, as well as the energy bills. Energy bills are something that's affecting everybody. Dominion just announced a 14% rate increase, and that's not even connected to the Big Beautiful Bill. The Big Beautiful Bill is going to increase people's energy costs upwards of $400 per year because of just pulling out of energy investments. So a lot is happening, and it's hitting people at their wallets. It's on kitchen table issues, and that's how we get in with them and let them know these policies have a direct impact on you.
And one of the things I found unique about your resume is growing up, you've learned firsthand about being in financial need. Talk about growing up and what that was like. You tell us your story.
Yeah, I'm a child of immigrants. My mom's born in Tanzania. I grew up in England. So if I ever code switch to a British accent, that's why. And she moved here when she married my father, who was born and raised in Kenya, and moved here when he was in high school. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, just an amazing story. He was about 12 years old when the India-Pakistan partition happened. And he didn't really understand what was going on. So he tells us the story of while he was leaving his house, he turned around and he looked at his desk, and there was a pen on the desk. And he didn't have time to get it, but he thought, when I come back, I'll get my pen. He never got to go back to India. And he moved to Pakistan under threat of being killed at any given moment, and then lived there for a few years, and then married my grandma, and they moved to Kenya. And my mom's dad was also in India before the partition, and he was on the last train to get to Pakistan, where everybody was still alive. And the India-Pakistan partition is a sordid period in human history. It was the largest mass migration in human history, and it was awful. The trains would arrive, the later trains would arrive where everybody was dead. And when the doors opened, blood would just be pooling out. Like people don't know about it because the older generation doesn't talk about it. My grandfather, my mom's dad talked about it once. My dad's dad talked about it maybe 2 or 3 times. And so we grew up low income. My dad worked for the city of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My mom was a housewife, a homemaker, and actively involved in the PTA. And we grew up on WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children's Program. And I remember days that we would go to the WIC office in the morning, and on the way home, we would stop by a church and pick up hot meals to distribute for Meals on Wheels for our homebound elderly and disabled neighbors. And my mom taught me just from a young age that it's never about taking. It's always about giving back, no matter what state of life you're in. And what I remember of our Meals on Wheels deliveries is entering these people's homes, just into the people isolated, forgotten. And my mom would never just drop off the food and leave, but she would always take time to speak with them and smile and ask how they're doing and be so compassionate. And that had an amazing effect on me. And I try to do the same wherever I go. I think that really helped me become a public interest lawyer. So we relied on programs like free school meals, and that got us through. And then when I was in law school, I was in poverty. My breakfast was often peanut M&Ms, and I rationalized it because peanuts have protein.
I mean, they do.
That should help me out. So nowadays, I kind of have PTSD when I see a yellow packet of M&Ms, but I also want to eat them at the same time. So it's a weird love-hate relationship.
Yeah, talking about law school, and obviously a lot of people watching this have student debt. Did you refrain from taking out student loans, or?
I wish. No, we grew up working class. I took loans out. I still have those loans.
Yeah.
I'm on the public service loan forgiveness track. So I just have a couple of years left, maybe 3 or 4. But, it's up in the air. I don't know what the Trump administration is going to do with it. But yeah, it's still there. It's still there. And then so like for a few years after law school, I was living in poverty until I got ironically employed by the Virginia Poverty Law Center. And I realized even when I was in law school, despite living in poverty, I would not have been eligible for SNAP food assistance because there's this work requirement that students have to be working to be able to get SNAP. And it just didn't make sense. I barely had time. James, you remember law school. You don't have time to read all the cases, let alone work.
Yeah.
So it's made in a very terrible way, deliberately so. So that's kind of like my thing. Like I resolved them there's no way we can live in the most prosperous nation and have these onerous, stupid requirements for people to go through just to get a few $100 a month for food. Forget about it. So I resolved listen, I got to do something to really make things better and improve things. So when I got to work at Virginia Poverty Law Center, we did just that. And then the other origin story is that my father's father, one of the times he talked to us about the partition was that his cousin Hafiza, her entire family was murdered, but her body was never found. And I didn't understand why her body was never found until sometime later, where I learned what happened to young girls during that time. Just horrific things, forced into marriage and forced to live this other life. And that really messed me up, James. There's always brown people becoming doctors or engineers or scientists or whatever. But I was like, you know what? These problems that Hafiza went through are still happening today. So let me become a lawyer and fight for international women's rights. And what really, when I think about that time, longevity is something in my family. And my grandfather, he just passed away this year at the age of 90. So it could have very well been that Hafiza was still alive when my grandfather was telling me this story, living a terrible, horrible life. Wow. So I had this crazy idea when I was in law school that I would work in Southeast Asia, and I would do work during the day and then hunt down, these child traffickers by night. But then Sally Mae sent me my first debt notice for student loan repayment. So I was like, okay, I better find a job here and do something about these loans. And then eventually I got into Virginia Poverty Law Center. And I was like, oh, you know what? single moms are disproportionately impacted by poverty. So my desire to help with women's rights is being fulfilled by doing this work at VPLC.
Yeah.
So that made me feel really good. And I got to work on some amazing things like expanding SNAP for over 25,000 families. And this is Jamil.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Jamil is a 3-year-old. He's going through potty training right now.
Okay.
He's in school today, but he's almost done.
Congrats.
Done. And then we also expanded TANF cash assistance by historic amounts twice, and that helps. That's a program that single moms are on. We also fought for menstrual equity. Now this was a really such a treat to work on. I got to work on this with former State Senator Jen McClellan, now representative, and what we wanted to do was give women who are receiving TANF cash assistance a subsidy from the TANF pool to help offset the cost of period products. Yeah. Because women have, we know, like a monthly menstruation cycle, and they have to buy these period products. And if they're receiving TANF, then a chunk of that money is going to that for sure. So we're like, hey, let's give them some extra money to offset the cost. And we were doing that at the same time as, so we had that bill and we had a budget amendment at the same time to increase the TANF subsidy by like a historic amount, by like 20% or something. And State Senator Janet Howell looked at both bills and she's just like, you know what? Let's just give the increase because it's time for an increase because it hadn't been an increase in forever. So we were able to negotiate against ourselves to get a much better deal. Yeah. So it was great. It was wonderful that we were able to do that. We also, help provide technical assistance for schools to expand free school meals for thousands of students across the Commonwealth. So did a lot, just to help families and working families out. But I think along with expanding SNAP, I felt guilty when we got that done in 2020 because that's when COVID was raging. Yeah. And people were losing their jobs and needing to apply for SNAP. So what I realized, I felt guilty because I'm like, the Department of Social Services, which administers the SNAP program, is going to be overwhelmed by all these new people who are now eligible for SNAP, thousands and thousands of people. Yeah. So I was like, let's make a screening tool. And I got to work with this group from the government called 18F, 18F as in Frank. And they were doing good work because DOGE just cut them earlier. Yeah. So they were phenomenal. They were millennials working in tech for all the right reasons. And what we did is we spent that summer of 2020 to make this screening tool that was end user designed, deliberately designed, because we were like, people in poverty don't have computers typically or broadband internet. So we want to make something that's mobile friendly and only asking questions based on the answers people have provided, because there's no need to be asked every single question. Yeah. Not many graphics or anything like that. And then ultimately, people can find, if he keeps typing, he'll crank out some Shakespeare.
I love it.
It'll be our ticket to freedom. And then once they fill out the screener, then it also would tell them how much they could receive in benefits. So is it worth their time to apply for the program? So we spent the summer making this, and then we unveiled it in the fall. We're so excited. And James, nobody used it.
Really?
Wow. Nobody uses it. And I felt so bad. I was apologizing to 18F. I'm like, I wasted your time. I'm so sorry. And 2 weeks go by, nobody's used it. And then we have this random local news interview. And it wasn't part of my talking points, but I randomly said, oh, we have the screening tool for SNAP. And James, overnight, 100 people use it. Okay. At the end of the month, thousands. And then within a year, some whiz kid named Ben, he's like, hey, can I take this code? Because the code was freely available. Can I take this code and make it available for the whole country? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So we worked on this, rolled it out to the whole country. And in the past 4 years that's been live, it's helped over 2.5 million families unlock over $100 million in SNAP and WIC benefits. Wow. So that was birthed in the Commonwealth.
Is that still live now?
Yes, snapscreener.com.
Let me see. Give me a second.
Yeah, snapscreener.com, free to use. And we also made it deliberately so that we could get more government programs into it, so that people could have like a one-stop shop for government assistance.
Okay. And it actually helps you look at Medicaid eligibility, WIC, all this stuff.
Yeah, and the bummer, the inefficiency is that all of these programs have different eligibility criteria.
Yeah.
Which is messed up. And so like that's my thing. Like as an expert in this space, I know how these programs work, but really I know how they can work better.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And one of those things is, you know, we all want the government to be more efficient. Unfortunately, the way Elon Musk did it was horrible. So we can really streamline these programs, consolidate them in ways, consolidate the eligibility criteria, so that people who are in poverty don't have to like jump through so many hoops and make it a full-time job just to apply for all these programs.
And by the way, for anybody watching this YouTube, I'll put the link in the show notes as well, but it's pretty straightforward, snapscreener.com, and I just shared it. Looks pretty interesting. Now, obviously, one of the features of the big, beautiful bill is to add complications to apply even if you're qualified. What do you think about that? And do you think that will have a tangible effect causing eligible people to not even get benefits under Medicaid and other types of benefits?
Yeah, so the Republicans, when talking about the big, beautiful bill, they were all about eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse.
Sure.
But there was nothing in the bill that actually targeted waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah.
What they considered to be waste, fraud, and abuse is simply people using the program.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing that they did that has the first immediate impact is introducing even more terrible work requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these programs by design already have default work requirements. You can't live on a SNAP benefit. You can't live by receiving Medicaid. Like, you know, they say like, you know, people are at home getting Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not at home like with a belt full of like doctor's visits that you can like go off and sell. Like, Medicaid isn't giving you any money.
Well, and that's what I always found hilarious about that argument, and so cynical, is that they try to make it seem like you're collecting a check if you have access to healthcare, and you would think that you would want preemptive care so they don't end up in the system and hospitals going bankrupt. I found a really good resource that I think is important, and I'll link this to the show notes as well. It's an interactive website by Voices for Virginia Children, but it walks you through potential loss of SNAP benefits and Medicaid benefits by 2034. But what was, I thought, illustrative, especially for Virginia. Now you're District 1, so you're around. Can you see this screen?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're around this area, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of as you get redder in the vote, you get a higher percentage of people, and this is from 2023, relying on Medicaid benefits. So if you're going to Buchanan County, where I'm from, as high as a quarter reliant. Mm-hmm. If you're over here in Essex, nearly a quarter reliant. And then you go up here, and I'd encourage people to take a look at this, and you can see where the loss of Medicaid funding is going to be going to under this bill. So I'll link that to the show notes, but it's just really frustrating. Now, you've talked a lot about, and you've had a lot of tangible experience at the state level with the Poverty Law Center. You've obviously had a lot of impact. What, in your mind, made you decide, you know what, I think I can have a bigger impact in Congress versus what you're already doing now?
Yeah. So when the Big Beautiful Bill was happening, I worked at the Food Research and Action Center. It's a national nonprofit. And we were working alongside Medicaid and tax experts to educate Congress members, their staff, and thousands of people across the country on what this bill's impact will be. Mm-hmm. Like, we were just trying to beat it into them. Like, listen, we know we don't have the power. We know industry is the one with the power, because they've got the money. That's how you have power in this in this industry, right? Mm-hmm. But the industry wasn't speaking up. Mm-hmm. They were afraid of retribution from the Trump administration. So you would have thought grocery stores would have been at the forefront of not wanting SNAP benefits cut.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge part of their revenue. But not a single grocery store came out to speak. Walmart did not come out to speak against these cuts. And that infuriated me. Like, you're gonna take, but as soon as you might feel a little bit of something, you're not gonna say anything. That was messed up. And so I'm like, listen, we need people in the government, in Congress, who are experts in this space, who are not just relying on what industry's telling them. Yeah. We need people who know how to make people-centered policy, not corporate-centered policy. So as somebody who has fought for the working class for years, I'm the guy. I've got the experience, I've got the expertise, and I've got the vision on how we can really make these programs efficient. And that's the type of public servant we need doing public service.
When you hear companies like Walmart, like, I don't know, I'm not going to name a specific grocery store because you didn't, but can you understand their silence from a market perspective? And how would you address to them from a market standard why this makes sense?
Why what makes sense?
Why speaking up and saying, look, Medicaid benefits us all, SNAP benefits us all. How would you convince them to speak up for the American person rather than the American corporation?
Man, I don't know. We tried. Yeah. We tried. Now they said, you can bring us into meetings, but we're not going to speak out. And they know all the details. They know how many jobs it creates for themselves. They know that they took a big hit when the emergency benefits stopped after the pandemic, because they were getting a lot extra billions of dollars a year. Yeah. So when that stopped, they felt it. So I thought, oh, well, they would be, the common sense would be that they would know that this is going to hit them even harder. Now, I will say that the National Grocers Association, NGA, which is a coalition of the independent, more like rural-based grocery stores, they were speaking out from the jump.
Sure.
So they get it. They absolutely get it. Like, these are grocery stores in rural areas that once with these SNAP cuts that are happening,
they've got nothing to lose.
Well, they have everything to lose. And so they get it. Like, there's a lot of their, you were looking at the map for Medicaid counties, like similar for SNAP, right? The more rural it gets, the more you're going to see. The more red it is, the more you're going to see of people receiving SNAP. So these rural grocery stores know that this is going to hurt their bottom line. And this is going to result in two things. One is increasing their prices to handle the loss, and then ultimately closing up because nobody's wages are increasing. So they're not going to be able to buy more or to pay more. So ultimately, it's just like the way hospitals are going to be forced to shut down divisions or shut down entirely. Same thing's going to happen for grocery stores. So that's what we're saying. It's a terrible place we're in.
Yeah, I can't keep getting around the fact that the biggest issue to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, and help me understand, is it's almost like there's an informational disconnect between what Republicans are saying versus what the information their voters are getting. And I think we all recognize it, right? You got Fox News, you got, I don't know where Joe Rogan is on this, but you got the whole podosphere kind of thing. Do you have any ideas how Democrats as a whole should be combating that? How do we solve that solution? Or is that just a problem that we just have to recognize is there and just get out more?
I've asked Chuck Schumer to write a strongly worded letter.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. That's not going to work at all. It's about meeting people where they are and letting them know this is what's happening. I'm working on a platform. Like, my campaign is not really on a party-based strategy. It's on a working class strategy, a strategy of we are one. Developing that class consciousness rather than a clash consciousness. For so long, these billionaires have divided us and said, oh, you're middle class. You don't want to become lower class. And I hate those terms. The lower class has this like sub-citizen standard, like an untouchable in the American caste system. So I don't like using those words. I like to say, hey, we are all working class, and it's against the elites who control everything, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. They are manipulating everything to make sure they're the ones who benefit. They just got trillions in tax cuts. at a time when our national debt is ballooning because of what the Republicans just voted on.
Well, the national debt increased to pay for the tax cuts.
Exactly. It's not fiscally responsible, and everybody, no matter what party you're in, can agree on that. And so what we're talking about as well is how the Republican Party that a lot of people are members of, that they've been members of for decades, is dead. And having them reconcile with that is a growing pain for them right now. They see that Trump is a Republican, that R is next to his name, but he's not. They see that their Republican elected official has an R next to their name, but they're not. If they are enabling what Trump is doing with this fascist takeover of the government, with a ruining of all the checks and balances that the founders had made so that we don't have a tyrannical government, these like seeds, planting them in our Republican neighbors now is going to blossom over the course of the next year and help them realize that Rob Whitman is not a Republican. He's a fascist enabler, somebody who has not stopped the president from using tariff powers. The Congress has the power to tariff. He hasn't done anything to stop the courts from giving their powers to the executive. He hasn't done anything to support the release of the Epstein files. You know, if you're saying you're from the party of family values, but we can't even trust you to be around our kids, like what is going on? Like this is no longer the Republican Party that you grew up with. And the sooner we realize that, and the sooner that we can coalesce around a campaign that's focused on how we are one working class, and we are all going to unite against those who are not paying their fair share of taxes, leaving it on our children or our grandchildren to pay off these debts. And the sooner then we can really get into a country making a government that helps us all instead of just the elites.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think my thought of it when you say that they are not Republicans, I'm becoming more radical. In fact, you wrote an article why I got radicalized, and we'll talk about universal health care in a moment.
Yeah.
I find myself day after day as we get deeper and deeper into this Trump administration becoming more radicalized, in the sense that I think they are Republicans, but I think that's what Republican is now. To be a Republican is to be full into Trump. And I don't know that it is possible to convert the Republican Party back into whatever it said it was. And frankly, I'm 42. I've always had questions about the sincerity of the Republican Party, trickle down economics and all that bullshit. I mean, to me, it was like obvious that it's like, all right, well, yeah, let us get rich, then you'll get rich. I promise you. Let's just see what happens. And then we're going to lock up your poor. And if you're drug addicted, you're going to jail for the rest of your life. So I'm ranting, but one of the things that the New York Times just had a daily podcast this morning about Trump taking 10% of Intel. And then you also have Bernie Sanders saying, this is what we actually want. And they actually Bernie has some interesting points. It's like, look, we want to tax these companies. Isn't this really just a form of tax? What's your thoughts about, compelling private companies to give a stake in their business?
I don't know. I don't have any. I need to do more research on government takeover of corporations. I don't know if I vibe with that. I when it comes to like healthcare for all, I feel like healthcare for all will work really well if it's existing in parallel with private healthcare. That way it gives people options.
Medicare for those who want it, right?
For those who want it. Yeah. So I did get radicalized when I was living in Scotland.
Yeah, talk about that. Talk about that a little bit.
I lived in Scotland for a year when I was studying abroad.
By the way, is that how you pronounce it? Or you just
I can't bring myself to saying Scotland. It's just so harsh.
Okay. When you were living in your flat, I don't even know how it works. I've been to like New York. I've never even been out of the country yet. So.
Oh man, dude, it's so that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that universal health care was a thing. Until I went to Scotland.
Yeah.
And so when I was there, I had to go see a doctor. And when I was, checking out or, signing out or whatever, I pulled my wallet out. And I'm like, hey, how much is it? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just saw the doctor. How much does it cost? And they're like, we don't charge for doctor's visits here. And so being a poor young guy, I'm not going to second guess them on not needing to pay for something.
Yeah.
And I left the office. I'm just like, wait, what? Like, they're just missing out on money. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then I did research on it, and it turns out after World War II, they decided as a society that healthcare is a human right, and they made policy to create the National Health Service, NHS. And I was like, wait, you can do that? And then I was like, wait a second, every single law is made up. There's no universal truth. There's no math or science that necessitates a law to exist. It's all made up. And if we have the political will, we can make up laws that help people. Who would have thunk? So I'm not beholden to precedent. Just because I'm a SNAP expert doesn't mean I want SNAP to exist forever. In fact, I would love to consolidate some programs into some sort of means-tested income program, just to make it easier, make it more efficient for everybody. So like, I'm not beholden to precedent, which as a lawyer, some people might be like, wait, what? But that's
neither is the Supreme Court. So I mean,
right.
So
like, just because something worked for a time, it doesn't need to work forever. And we can have a means-tested income program that's not designed to be around forever. Like, let's give it a shot for a decade or so and just see how it works, because it's working in hundreds of pilots across the country. But like all this, right? Like, we should be revolutionary. The last thing that was revolutionary in this country was a war. So let's be innovative. Let's live in the future instead of holding on to outdated precedent.
Well, I can't help but laugh about part of the foundation of the quote Tea Party was this anti-Obamacare. Frankly, I think it was more about color of skin than healthcare policy. But they were so adamant that Obamacare was going to be the death of society and that our culture was going to crumble. And now the only way that Republicans win on Obamacare is to lie to their constituents about what it's actually about, and then hide tax credits in their big beautiful bill that's slowly going to eat away Obamacare. And I think you're younger than me. I'm not old enough to remember what life was like before we had protection for pre-existing conditions, but I can't imagine, because I litigate injury cases, I can't imagine going in for, a doctor's visit, and then they say, well, Aetna's not covering it because you had a pre-existing heart condition. I'm like, where are we living here? It is not revolutionary to say that if you're sick, that you should be able to get access to care. I mean, what is the point of all this? What is the point of all the increased efficiency if we're just trying to get billionaires more billions? I mean, is that really what we're doing here?
Everybody has some sort of pre-existing condition. They just don't know it yet. Like I had a chronic illness that I didn't even realize. I thought it was just normal to not be able, like, have a reaction to eating wheat bread. I didn't think that was like anything else, but had, these pre-existing condition protections not existed, I wouldn't have been able to be treated for it. Like, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. And it really shows how privatized healthcare is anything but care. It's just about, like, we're literally an ATM machine for these health insurance CEOs, where we're just giving them money, hundreds of dollars a month, just giving them money for nothing in return. It makes no sense. I don't get it. Like, I have to give you money, but then I have to spend more money to meet a deductible. Like, try explaining this to anybody across the world that has universal health care. And one of the reasons why we don't have it here yet is because every time Republicans moved further right, instead of Democrats moving left, they followed.
Sure.
They always followed. And Republicans never compromise or negotiate with Democrats, but Democrats are always like, how can we negotiate and compromise with Republicans? Like, you look at the big beautiful bill, like, it was like on a national level, it was worse than we expected. And Republicans budged on nothing. Absolutely nothing. And Democrats were hemming and hawing and just trying to figure things out. But had the roles been reversed, had it been a triple blue government, Democrats would have been negotiating against themselves.
Sure. Well, Nate Silver just tweeted something about Blue Sky, which you're a big part of, and I love Blue Sky as well. And he essentially said that the blue skyism is the reason that Democrats keep losing. If we could just get rid of them, we'd win elections or something. And I'm paraphrasing, but I just laugh. It's like I was talking to somebody else the other day about this. Politics is litigation, right? You don't give your bottom dollar offer. You go high, and then you work to the middle. And what we've created now is a political world where if Democrats go high, they're then shunned for it. And then Republicans are not even required to compromise anymore. It's just like, what are we? Is this really how the game is played?
It's awful. And when Republicans go low and Democrats go low, then everybody's like, oh, well, should Gavin Newsom be gerrymandering? Well, if Gavin Newsom doesn't gerrymander, it's over. And I like what he's doing, but it's still on the defense. We need Democrats to come on the offense.
Yeah.
Democratic governors need to be talking to each other and figuring out some economic compact. Because here with the fascist takeover, Trump hasn't fully succeeded because he doesn't have the economic power. All the blue states have the economic power. Mm-hmm. So why is he sending the military or the National Guard into the Democratic states? It doesn't, 1 + 1 = 2. That's what he's doing it for. So these blue states need to band together and not live in isolation or live with their consultants or whatever it is. Like, listen to the people, man. Like, you're polling lower than a fascist president.
Yeah.
Like, get it together.
It's interesting. So I served on the redistricting commission here in Virginia. I am a fan of what Newsom is doing. If nothing else, to say, hey, we're still alive over here. We might be bleeding out, but we're still going to try to stand up. So our Democratic congressional candidate, Abigail Spanberger, came out this weekend and said, look, we just are not in a policy ability to redistrict here in Virginia because of our redistricting amendment. And she said, I want to start fighting now and trying to flip districts, including Congressional District 1. Obviously, this is a big focus. What's your thoughts about that kind of statement where you're not openly saying, look, let's try to redistrict where Trump is, and being more, I guess, conservative about it? What advice would you have, or maybe not at all? What's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, she laid out the reasons why you can't do it, because of the Constitution and the way it has to go through a couple of general assemblies, and it goes to the people, and the earliest it could happen was like 2028, I think. Yeah. So I get it. I get that. And we do have a really good opportunity to flip Congressional Districts 1 and 2, and hold, the line on a lot of others. And maybe Ben Klein's district, I think CD6, who knows? But that's like Western Virginia. That's more red.
Yeah.
But
I here's what's happening. I love it. But yeah,
really, it's not just, so the focus is on this November for me. And that's what I'm telling my donors and my base. Like, hey, listen. And I made something called Salaam's List on Act Blue, where I am encouraging my donors to give to these candidates, as well as the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general.
Do you have a link for that?
I do. It's I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It's actblue.com/ I think like Salaam's List, but we'll send it over. It's actually, if you go to my website, salam4va.com, that's the donate link. That's where it goes to. So the reason being is, like, these are candidates within District 1, and I'm going to add a couple more to it, that we need to make sure they flip the district or make that seat bluer. So that'll help queue us up for next year to make sure we get all the Democrats and independents and Republicans to vote in the November race to really help flip the district. That's the play we're making here. And that's how we're going to be. That's one of the ways we'll be able to help make CD1 bluer and ultimately flip the district. Now, in case people don't know, CD1 is targeted for flipping. And it was targeted before Whitman even voted on the big, beautiful bill. So as people find out, they're turning on him. And you can see, if I get his emails and his social media, he's ramping up the misinformation.
Well, tell me about that. Give me some examples.
Yeah, so he keeps sending out these emails about why I voted for HR1. And he's backpedaling on everything. And even when he supported HR1, when it was going through Congress, he sent out a letter saying, oh, we shouldn't cut Medicaid.
I saw that, yeah.
But he still voted for it. Don't vote for it if you don't want to cut Medicaid. So he's in trouble, and he knows it. So it's gonna flip. We're just going to keep, meeting people where they are, letting them know this is how it's going to impact them, and this is who's responsible for it.
What do you worry about? Because your area is I think bluer. It's purple, I think.
Yeah.
Do you worry about the argument? And this is going back to Nate Silver, right? That if you go too far progressive, that turns off the district. I mean, we're talking about, everybody knows Mamdani, and let's be real. If you're the candidate, there's going to be racism, right?
Oh yeah.
They're going to, they're trying to connect Spanberger to her, and she's as white as you can get, like, with all respect to her. What is your concern about that? What would your response be? Is it, hey, I am like Mamdani politically, or is it, no, I'm my own person? Do you distance yourself? Tell me about that.
Now, I'm my own person. CD1 is much different than New York City. And our policies are what people want. So we're not going to couch them as progressive or left-leaning or centrist or moderate or anything. It's just like, hey, here's how the government can work to help you. Here's how we can get towards healthcare for all. Like, I know that, and the message we're relaying is, we can't get healthcare for all tomorrow.
Yeah.
If we did, it would fail immediately because we don't even have enough doctors as it is right now.
Yeah.
So it's a whole infrastructure build out to make sure more med schools open, and more students can be admitted into med school. We got to make sure there's more residencies available in hospitals and internships and all that. And this is coming at the same time when the big, beautiful bill said that you can only get up to $200,000 in loans. And it takes a lot more than $200,000 to go through med school. Yes. So there's a problem there. And the big, beautiful bill is also going to result in hospitals shutting down. So the limited amount of residencies is going to become even more limited. So we're working in a very terrible space for the current situation. So we have an opportunity to rebuild something even better. Not get couched, no, this is a myopic, dystopic future. But hey, this is an opportunity. I look at silver linings. How can we make policy that helps people out? And I want to let people know, like, listen, this is what we did when we were working with the state assembly. We made people-centered policy, and it helped people. And this is how the government should be working to help you. Your groceries are increasing. Let's see what we can do about that. Your energy bills are increasing. Let's see what we can do about that. Your elected officials are getting corrupted. Let's see what we can do about that. There's foreign influence coming in. Let's see what we can do about that. There's a genocide happening in Gaza. Let's end that, because everybody believes that what goes around comes around, and what's happening there is happening here in small pieces and big pieces. So we've got a lot of work to do.
Talking about groceries, right? You hear the government-sponsored groceries, grocery stores. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to explore. I don't think it would really work in our district because of the sparsely located populations in the rural areas. I'd love to see I'd love to see some sort of model in a similarly zoned or area. But there was, for example, Michelle Obama, when she was first lady, she tried to do something about creating more grocery stores in food deserts. And, the big grocery retailers signed on. They're like, yeah, by X date, we're going to have so many more. But it never panned out because there's no profit in those rural areas. Like, it wouldn't be sustainable to remain open. So there are different types of things that are happening with, like, food access in Virginia. And we had created something known as the Virginia Food Access Investment Fund, I think it was called. And that gave grants to organizations to figure out their own way of figuring out food access. So we had some, like, mobile carts or mobile things would be coming through rural areas. So there are different opportunities of bringing groceries to the people. In a time where grocery delivery is happening, how can we innovate so that drivers can drive further distances and deliver to homebound folks, right? Or people who don't have transportation. So there are real incredible opportunities with some grocery retailers who are just online now, and exploring that and trying to figure out some sort of public-private partnership.
Yeah, and there's food deserts in your jurisdiction, right?
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. And, it's funny is I hear this idea I'm a big fan of business. So I listen to all kinds of business podcasts. And one of the things that seemed clear to me with grocery stores is there's such a small premium. Like you're not, except for the Walmarts of the world. In fact, that's the reason Walmarts exist, because they've bought up all the, or destroyed all the mom and pop shops. If you're in an area where you've got food deserts and need, it's probably almost a better idea than it would be in like a place like New York City where food's everywhere. It's just, you're trying to control the cost. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth exploring, of trying to figure that public-private model out. I think that's where the long arm of the government has the greatest impact. It's not necessarily that the government has to run it or create it or this or that, but we can rely on the experts in the space who have done it.
And the thing is like, I keep hearing everybody on the right talking about how you got to run the government like you run business. Businesses exist to profit. Yeah. The government does not exist to profit. They exist to serve us and to protect the most vulnerable. I mean, this is kind of basic stuff.
It's in the Constitution. The Congress's role is to provide for the general welfare.
Yeah. Let's talk. You're at the national level. You're running for national candidacy, and obviously Trump, using the National Guard and creating his own private army. There was a report that came out this weekend. There was 54 shootings in Chicago, and I think 7 deaths. And obviously Trump is using this as justification to send the National Guard. What is your thought about the local citizen in Chicago that says, you know what, crime is just out of hand? I don't mind there being soldiers here to protect us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a law of proportion, right? Chicago is a huge city, millions of folks. So when you hear something like 54 this or 7 that, it sounds like a lot. And every death is bad. And I believe the death of any innocent is like the destruction of all of mankind. But we also have to look at Louisiana, where their percentage of murders is far worse than blue areas. Mm-hmm. And yet, surprise, surprise, Trump is not sending the military into those areas. Mm-hmm. And so what this is a retribution move. This is him taking military control of blue areas and also places that are led by Black people, because he's a racist and he's an authoritarian, and he's trying to just take over with his fascist maneuvers.
Well, and I had Andrew Lucchetti on a few weeks ago. Your opponent, but I'm sure you guys are friends. It's all good. We're all on the same team.
I like saying colleague.
Say again.
I like calling them colleagues.
He's a colleague.
Yeah.
He is an injury attorney. He does injury work and civil rights cases. I do injury work, and what he pointed out, and I think is right, is essentially the immunization of all these federal law enforcement from any civil recourse. I mean, you've got masks, so you can't even identify who did what wrong. Obviously, no training on local policing. And then when you go to sue them because you've either been wrongfully arrested or excessive force has been used, there are federal cases that essentially protect them from civil lawsuit. Have you thought about that issue? What do you think about masks, and what plans do you have to address that if you're elected?
Yeah, I would love to abolish ICE.
Well, I mean, when you say so let me, because do you think abolish ICE is a reasonable statement? I mean, we need immigration enforcement, right?
Right.
What do you when you say abolish ICE, what does that mean?
That means abolish their fascist methods, their authoritarian control, their lack of due process, and create something that actually works. We all want stronger borders, but that doesn't mean that we want people separated and deported without due process. That's unkind. That's cruel. That's inhuman. And again, it comes back to karma. We treat people this way in inhumane ways, and it's going to come back and bite us. And it currently is biting us. I mean, it's awful what we're going through. These are not normal times. So what we need to do is restructure these organizations, these agencies, to be more humane and more compassionate. It's not necessarily that we need to be punitive to have effective outcomes. I'd like to see more compassion-based justice, more reformative, more education involved. Like, for example, it comes down to childhood. If you are hungry in school because you didn't have breakfast because you can't afford it, you're going to act out in school.
Mm.
Not because you're a bad kid, because you're hungry. Angry kids act out. All they need is a snack. All they need is a meal. But if a school doesn't have the resources to provide meals or anything like that, then they get sent to the principal's office. They go to detention. They go to suspension. And that is the school to prison pipeline.
Sure.
So when that happens, we're from the root of it all, we've failed. But if we are able to provide just a basic need from the get-go, then that is a compassion-based form that will reduce ultimately later down the road prisons and everything like that. So stronger root fixes will help much later. Unfortunately, our government does not act in that way. We act on a reactive basis instead of looking forward. So how can we look forward to immigration? How can we look forward to border control? And how can we ultimately look forward to how we work with those who may have come in without documentation? And also remember, coming in without documentation is not a felony. It's a misdemeanor. And if you think about, you get a speeding ticket, it's a misdemeanor. You wouldn't get, you get a misdemeanor in Virginia, doesn't mean you should get transported over to California. It doesn't make sense. That's not just.
Yeah, and I hear look, I'm a big advocate for criminal justice reform. I'm a former public defender. I get that. I'm looking at it kind of differently from the immigration. Let's separate immigration. Let's assume, I'm not saying that I believe this at all, but let's assume that ICE's purpose is for immigration enforcement. And the difference, I think, between coming in illegally or overstaying your visa and that being I think some of it may be a civil offense, and then if you come back, it's now maybe a felony or a misdemeanor. I don't know the exact law. But the difference, though, is versus like me stealing, food from a grocery store or Xbox, whatever. The difference there is if you come here illegally, though, you're now in this country. And the argument is if we just disregard that, we no longer have control of our borders. And how does a society function without some control over borders? And I will tell you personally, I don't know that, in my view, taking away ICE, abolishing it, and then creating something, we'll call it, IBE or some other organization, really changes. It's still going to have to function, right?
Right.
Are you overshooting the ball by saying abolish ICE? And are you disregarding kind of a basic concern about being able to at least control who's in the country?
Right. So let's say reform ICE.
Sure.
The reformation is going to be huge at this point because they are attracting a lot of people who were part of January 6th.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I'm going to go conspiracy theory on you. I think that part of what this big, beautiful bill is not even immigration. It is for Trump to create his own army. And when you think about the marketing towards recruiting these people, now you have government-funded explicit Trump supporters that have been willing to do things like January 6th, or at least support it. Yeah. You've created a paid force, healthcare. You give them a livelihood. I mean, that is insane to me.
Yeah. And we've seen that they're not just going after people without documents. They're going after citizens too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's absolutely out there, out in the public, and we all see it. So massive reformation will be needed. Mark Pocan has introduced a bill to do just that, to absolutely reform the whole thing and make it more humane or more human. I forget. I know there's like a terminology difference.
I honestly don't know the difference.
One word is about how you treat animals.
Oh, human. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't want to get caught up in that. So that's the thing. Like if it comes down to having to rebuild the whole program, I mean, if you have the infrastructure in place, it's cheaper that way. But if it's from the root, if it's bad, then you got to rebuild and remake. And we can do that. That's what the government does. It makes things up.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about every time somebody says, if you question ICE or you question some other government agency in Trump's version, they treat it like they do criminal justice reform, where either you back the blue or you love criminals, right? And it's like the inherent nature of they've posted Democrats as institutionalists, while at the same time, every time we're trying to legitimately challenge institutions, they're the ones backing it. I can't help to notice the laugh at that irony. So,
yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I question everything all the time.
Yeah.
Just because it exists doesn't mean it's legitimate.
Couple issues that I think are going to be big. The one I saw you post about flag burning, and you essentially said, "Look, I'm a lawyer. This is a constitutional right." Somebody had an insightful thought, though, I thought was interesting. They said, look, it's not about the flag burning. What they're trying to do is to get Democrats with the imagery of them burning flags. It's a creative way of getting marketing materials to talk about how Democrats hate Americans, hate America. What's your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's a constitutionally protected right to burn the flag under the First Amendment. What Trump is seeking to do is say, burning something on public land is bad. Like that's illegal. And so we're going to arrest you for burning something. But really, that's just a backhanded way of restricting your First Amendment rights. And your First Amendment right is something that doesn't mean everybody agrees with you on it. Mm. That's the beauty of the First Amendment. It's your ability, your power in this country to really express yourself. Mm-hmm. And the government cannot come in and restrict that. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what's happening here. So whether or not it's Democrats burning something or Republicans doing X, Y, and Z, holding signs outside of, abortion clinics and all this kind of stuff, like that's the First Amendment. Mm-hmm. That's what makes America great, even if you don't agree with it.
Again, now, that's a joke. I do find it funny that the First Amendment warriors, not a word about exercise of free speech, and obviously, especially here in Virginia, they're trying to make it about trans rights, and I keep hearing the statement that trans girls in girls' sports is an 80-20 issue, meaning 80% of the country supports banning trans girls in girls' sports. What's your thoughts on that?
I think any type of ban that impacts people's equality is bad. We need to make sure people have the right to be people. Mm-hmm. I want to also keep in mind that people who are in the LGBT community are disproportionately impacted by poverty. Mm-hmm. Whether it's because they're discriminated against and not being able to get a job, or their parents kick them out of their homes. Like, these are issues plaguing millions of people across the country. So we want to make sure that we are creating policy on a congressional level that helps them in a poverty sense, getting out of poverty. So that's why my policy priority on making a better safety net more efficient is going to impact folks in the LGBTQ plus space, people who are in poverty, no matter the situation, to lead a better life. And that really comes down to the class consciousness of the working class.
And I'll tell you, I saw an interesting op-ed in the Richmond Times, Scott Bass, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but he talked about how essentially the argument Winsome Sears is using is really just a cynical way. And he had a stat that from 2020 to 2024, there was only 10 cases where trans girls were playing in girls' sports. And I just couple that, you look at that compared to like how many kids are getting shot in school, right? I mean, we just had in Minnesota, all of a sudden, now we can't talk about impacts on families because it's too political and things like that. So how do you frame that and are you allowed, as part of your priorities, does the trans issue to the top, or is it something that you're focused on, but you're focusing on the economics more? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I'm focused more on what affects more people. Sure. But when it comes to people being discriminated against, absolutely would not allow for it in any way, shape, or form. Again, yeah, it is something that, the right wing is trying to I don't want to say distract us, but just be like, hey, put all your focus on this issue that's affecting a small amount of people. And that way you can actually do things that both will help those people and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see that deconstruct Democrats and cause them to become apathetic and vote Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, it's I don't want to say it's a fine line to walk, because it's a human rights issue. We need to be fighting for their human rights and protecting their human rights and standing in the way of anybody who's coming for their rights.
Mm-hmm.
And also working towards something even better.
So last moment, what haven't we talked about that you want the voters to know, or issues that you just want to reiterate? Why should you be elected?
Yeah, so as a public interest lawyer, I've spent my career and really my whole life fighting for the working class. And that's what we need in Congress, more working class fighters who are ready to fight on day one. Mm-hmm. I've worked before the state assembly. I've worked alongside Congress to draft bills, work them through and get them signed by the governor, made technology that helps improve people's lives. I know the importance of people-centered policy, and that's what we should be doing, making people-centered policy. I'm going to be focused on the working class. My 3 priorities are making sure people pay their fair share of taxes, fighting for the working class by getting to a living wage, getting to healthcare for all, creating a better safety net, and then saving America along the way, making sure we have campaign finance reform, making sure we get dark money out of politics, overturn Citizens United, and take foreign influence out of politics, which is why I'm not accepting any money from AIPAC, and ending the working to end the genocide in Gaza.
Okay. Well, look, Salaam, I appreciate you taking the time. If anybody has questions, they can reach out to you. I'm gonna link your website to the show notes too, so they can learn more about you. Mm-hmm. Is there a specific web email address or anything you want to give out, so if people have questions?
Oh yeah, feel free to DM me on, especially on Instagram.
Okay,
it's a lot easier. But you can go to a linktree.salambhatti. So I'll just put that in the chat. Link.ee/Salaam Bhatti VA. That'll have all my social media handles, and all my social media handles are the same. Salaam Bhatti VA.
Okay, I didn't realize there was a chat on this system I'm using here. So you young guys are teaching us about about technology,
and I can do it from Congress too.
Yeah. All right, man. Look, I appreciate the time. And hold on for a second. I'm going to end, and then we can chat real quick. So, thanks, man.